What do you know about the death tax? Hi, Nancy Beauvier here with Agape and NEXsteps. Welcome back to my channel. And for those of you who found me for the first time, welcome and thanks for joining us. This week I wanted to address the issue of the so-called death tax. The death tax actually is like an estate tax. Now here in Canada, at least so far, we don't have estate taxes. However, in the States, they have their death tax. They do have estate taxes. They have a federal level, and to complicate things, many states also have their own inheritance taxes as well. So it can become quite costly, and it can require really effective planning to try to minimize the tax grab that our governments impose on us even after we're dead. Now in Canada, as I say, we don't have an estate tax per se, but we do have probate fees. And those probate fees depend largely on where you're living. At this point in time, Ontario and British Columbia have the highest amounts of estate taxes, and they can amount to quite a significant amount. Alberta, my home province, caps out at $525 for a probate fee, and that is on estates over $250,000. And Manitoba, and I'm not sure which other province, there are two provinces that actually don't have any probate fees at all. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the phrase or unfamiliar with what the phrase means, probate is the actual act of validating a will. It has to go through the court. The court has to acknowledge that it is the last known will, and they have to provide a grant of probate before the executor can actually start to dispose of and dispense some of those assets to the named beneficiaries in an estate. Now, not all estates will require probate. Again, it depends on how much value there is. But typically, any estate that has any kind of value to it, any kind of assets held within it, will be subject to probate in the corresponding province. And it's the last province that you lived in as well. So if you lived in Alberta forever and then you retired to Nova Scotia, your probate would be based in Nova Scotia. So let's talk about this because we don't have estate fees yet here in Canada. In the US, on some very large estates, those estate fees can amount to 40%. So is it any wonder that those people with those large estates go to great lengths to try to protect their assets from that high level of taxation? Now here in Canada, again, what we want to do is we also want to minimize. Probate fees aren't the only things that we have to be concerned with here. When a person passes away here in Canada, the government does what is called a deemed disposition. And what that means is that as of the date of death, the government makes a deemed disposition that those assets that were held in that individual's name have been cashed in. So if you have a registered retirement plan, if you have a TFSA, if you have any kind of an investment, mutual funds that are not in a registered account, every holding that you have will have been deemed to have been sold at that value on the date of death. And as such, there will be capital gains going on it. So you do want to plan. There are some, for lack of a better word, we'll call it a loophole. You can pass on registered accounts. You can pass on assets like a house to a surviving spouse. But all you do in that case is you delay the taxes that will be due. For that reason, a lot more people are starting to set up living trusts. Living trusts are no longer just the purview of the rich and famous. They can be set up and maintained relatively inexpensively. Again, depending on the value of your estate, it might make good sense to talk to somebody about that. You can place your assets in a trust, and your beneficiaries are then shielded from tax implications. Now, if you're not aware, I am a certified executor advisor, and I am also a legacy and lifestyle planner. So what I do is I will meet with you and I will help give you some suggestions and some guidance. I'll be your co-pilot, if you will, to help make sure that you structure things to the best of your ability in this given moment to make sure that you are minimizing not only the tax implications, but also are structuring your estate so that when you do pass, things are transitioned with the least amount of unrest and emotion and upset and upheaval among your survivors and your beneficiaries. I'd like to invite you to hop over to my website. As usual, I do have an article that expands on this topic on my blog page there. And if you're so inclined while you're there, if you do sign up for my newsletter, you will get a notification every week when I put out new content on my YouTube channel, my podcast, and my article. And in addition, there are occasionally other invitations and things that are only available to people who are subscribing. And while you're at it, while you're here on my YouTube channel, if you're so inclined, please subscribe. If you're on my podcast, you can also subscribe there so that you don't miss anything. Thanks very much for joining me this week. I look forward to sharing more with you next time. Bye for now.